Serious people who've had S times X with their so ex-friend's parent. How the H times L did you get to that point? What happened after? Story 1. My brother's best friend from high school dated my mom in his 30s. She had my brother really young when she was barely 15. So when his friend was in his 30s, she wasn't yet 50. I always remember the night he found out they fought, and my brother's friend left the house and got into his car. My brother followed him out and punched him in the head through the driver's side window. He managed to go through the window and still connect with enough force to knock him out cold. Story 2. I was at a friend's birthday party. My friend was in her mid-20s and I was 30. Her mom was in her early 50s. She and her mom took really good care of me after my father passed, and they made sure I was eating and that I actually left the apartment every day, as I was prone to just sit around being a depressed, sad sack. Friend's mom and I used to get stoned together. So when we were at her daughter's birthday party at her mom's house, she called me to her room so that we could take a smoke break. She didn't want to do it in front of everyone. So it was somewhat familiar territory. Maybe it was the wine, but as we were smoking and chatting, I just leaned in and kissed her. To my surprise, she kissed me back and we proceeded to make out like a couple of young teenagers on the love seat in her bedroom. She stopped for a moment, looked at me and said, "Well, if I had known you were interested, we could have done this a long time ago." We made it out a little more, and I told her that we should stop because we were going to get caught. So we kissed a little more and returned to the party. The next day, she stopped by my apartment to see how I was doing, which wasn't uncommon, and the day was slightly different. She was always a very good-looking woman, but that day, she had more carefully applied makeup, some nice-looking earrings, and a blouse that showed off more cleavage than usual. I invited her in, and we were off to the races. We both had a great time, but I thought of my friend and said that we probably shouldn't do this again. She didn't really respond to it, and we continued to cuddle for a while. The next day she called me and said that she thought she must have lost her earring on my bed or my couch, which I thought was BS. But it turns out the earring was indeed in between the cushions of my couch. She came over to retrieve it, and we went at it again and again and again. This went on for months until I finally was moving out of state, and it never happened again. We never spoke of it, and my friend never found out. Sadly, my friend's mom passed away 5 years ago. I thought about telling her, but it just seemed like a bad idea. Yeah, this is 100% not a recommended idea to tell your friend now that her mom has passed. And if at all possible, it's best to just let that little secret fizzle into the ether, because there is no sense in your friend being pissed at you for the rest of your life and then resenting and hating her mom too. Sounds like they had a pretty good thing going, at least. And I'm sure that guy had fantasized about that a lot, and probably the mom too. Story 3. I got super drunk at my friend's mother's house. We all did, really, but mainly me and the mom. But I'd come as a friend who was going through a bit of a rough time, and it was supposed to be a nice surprise. My friend was going to her mom's for a nice night of merriment, and the mom told me I should come to cheer her up, which I agreed was a good idea. Everything started out fine, but as she and I got more drunk, we started kind of flirting, something that had actually happened before when we were both drunk. Then when it was time for everyone to go to bed, I snuck into her mom's room. My friend totally knew a fact I wasn't aware of until a little while after, but her mom then had to drive me to the train station to go home the next day. What happened after is I, like a complete coward, never apologized, even after I found out. My friend knew, and I lost that friend. They deleted me from social media and didn't speak to me for almost 2 years. We reconciled recently. I sent a long text a couple of months back, apologizing and letting my friend know how much I missed them. They then recently reached out because they found out I'm expecting my first baby. I'm very happy to be back in contact with this friend. Story 4. When I was 20, I got accepted to university in Canada. I'm a French guy, and my mom put together a barbecue to celebrate it with my best friends, among which was my actual best friend, a girl my age who lived far away so she would stay the night. My mom and dad were already getting divorced and sleeping in separate rooms back then, so there was no doubt they would ever get back to normalcy in terms of their relationship. After most people left and I was drinking my way around talking about Canada with another friend, my now former best friend, and my dad made sure my mom went to bed and carried on drinking together. All I remember after is trying to figure out where the heck my friend was in the morning, as the guest room was empty. It took so much fighting denial to realize she had been sleeping with my dad all night. Mom was destroyed. So was I. They both denied it and said that they just talked. I still can't believe this happened, But in retrospect, my dad has been such a crap dad to his kids and wife, and that friend has not been nice to me either. Something tells me that this might have been a previous thing, or at least some sort of tension going on between the friend and this person's dad. I don't know how much the friendship is going to continue after this because call me old-fashioned. It's weird when your best friend is banging your dad. I might be crazy, but that might cause some rifts. And I would love to hear some thoughts on this in the comments. Is it normal to throw a party for just getting into college? Not graduating, just getting accepted? Thoughts in the comments. Story 5. I hooked up with my student's mom. I was teaching an after-school program, so I saw her almost every week at pickup. Sometimes her husband would pick up, and yes, she was married, and we would talk a lot to the point that we became friendly. Well, I was going through a divorce and happened to bring that up one time, and she very quickly gave me her phone number, put her hands on me, and she was not being shy about it. Something like out of a movie. Next time I saw her, she asked me out to lunch and I said sure. We met up, had lunch, she paid, and she went on to tell me about how her and her husband were not involved with each other and they were free to see other people. We went back to my place and the deed was wild. That was the only time we hooked up though, as I started dating someone shortly thereafter. Our kid was one of those "I'll do your mom Xbox Live" kids, so I would just chuckle to myself when I saw him. Story 6. Had done it with my ex-girlfriend's mom in high school. I was 18, so it was technically legal. She recently became a single mom, just a year or two prior, and you could tell that she was really trying to get out there more. Very good looking, not even just for her age. Worked in real estate, but I don't think she'd like to mix things up with work and clients, which I think was hard because she was very successful in the area. Anyways, her daughter and I dated for over a year until we broke up. I went over to retrieve some of my stuff. My ex-girlfriend wasn't there because she couldn't stand to see me, so it was just her mom and I. She was overly friendly, but not acting out of the norm until I was leaving. And then she said, "If there's anything you ever need at all, please call me." I thought that was weird, but we exchanged numbers and I left. A week or two later, she began texting me. Eventually, she'd invited me over to watch movies. And again, I thought that was weird and some sort of ruse to get me over there to reunite the relationship with her daughter. But then she said her daughter was staying at her sister's and she was so bored she might finish this wine bottle all by herself. A few drinks actually sounded good, and getting booze at that age was hard. So I agreed. I'll spare you the details, but it didn't take long for it to happen once I got there. It was a great time, but I wasn't exactly proud of it because I was going through a lot at the time, as was she. I kept it to myself and never told anyone. We met up another time but had to be quick to avoid her daughter, who was set to get off work soon. And after that I realized I didn't want to do it anymore. And a few weeks later I shipped out to the military and left my entire old life behind anyway. We haven't spoken or seen each other since. Story 7. A friend at school's mom was pretty good looking. She was relatively young compared to most of our moms, and his dad was quite a bit older and absolutely meant it. When we were young teenagers, it was a bit of a running joke to give him crap about his hot mom or how his dad was her sugar daddy. Fast forward to the end of 6th form, and that's the end of high school for you US readers. When we were all 18, he was having a party at his massive house to celebrate. Most people were outside getting drunk in the garden, but I'd had a few bad months family stuff, so wasn't really feeling it. I decided to go and chill inside for a bit, and in the kitchen I found his mom, just drinking wine and looking for lonely out the window. I asked if she was okay and she pretty much unloaded all her issues. She was miserable. She hated his dad. She'd settled down without having a life first, felt trapped because she couldn't afford to leave, loved her kids, etc. I opened up about my issues too with my family, and it actually felt good to talk to a relative stranger about it. I now realize I should have been seeing a therapist. Anyway, one thing led to another, and she started making out with me and I didn't stop her. She then led me upstairs and the rest is history. Now, on the one hand, it was pretty awesome. She was smoking hot. I was pretty inexperienced and she really knew how to communicate in the bedroom. On the other hand, though, I knew I was betraying my friend and ruining up his parents' marriage. Plus, I could hear all my friends laughing and partying outside. A few months later, they got divorced and I understood. She got a bit shafted in the deal because she cheated on him. Now, I don't know if that was me or if she did it with someone else too. I am pretty ashamed about it, but I also realized that she was using me too. I was never under any illusion that we had some special connection or anything, but I can see she just wanted to do it with somebody out of catharsis or frustration, and maybe subconsciously to force the problems in the marriage into the daylight so she could finally get out. I get why this guy might feel guilty about what had happened, But from the sounds of it, it does seem like the marriage was probably doomed from the start and easily on its way out. He probably was used, as he mentioned, but maybe more of just as a catalyst to get the divorce started. Sounds like the mom knew deep down what was going to happen and just needed something to help out the situation, and the both of them got a little fun out of it too. Story 8. This kid's mom at his graduation party I went to high school with. His parents were rich and it was well known. His mom was decent looking and dressed like she was in high school, but this kid always had his close friends at his house until his graduation party. My close friend had a twin sister and we always partied together, and she wound up with an older kid who had already graduated, but he was cool and always hung out with us. So he comes to the grad party with us, and a long story short, the older kid was found pants down with the drunk mom bent over the bathroom sink, the kid whose party it was, and the dad went nuts and chaos ensued. The older kid hit the grad party kid and took off, and I heard that the mom wound up sleeping with another kid we went to school with a couple years later, and they got divorced. I'll never forget that chaos though. That was a fun party. Story 9. In high school, there was a popular cheerleader's mom who legitimately went out of her way to do a lot of kids in high school. Not sure if I should really answer here, because the cheerleader and I weren't necessarily best friends, but we were definitely cool and talked every now and then, as if I was a football player. The mom went around and messaged me and a few of my friends, cutting straight to the chase that she wanted to have some fun. I remember being excited at the time, just because in high school, you had to put in so much effort to have fun. I felt like this grown woman was just throwing it at me. She also scared me off because she was offering to eat my behind, and at the age of 15 or 16 I had no desire in doing it all. Anyways, one day I found a ride to her house and we did the deed. Amazing time, and the same was echoed with a few of my friends. The unfortunate part is that this woman was married with 2 other kids and all of this got out. I couldn't imagine the embarrassment for the cheerleader. Never talked to her personally about it, mainly because I was one of the kids that did. It also felt bad for her husband. He continued trying to save the marriage. Guy, I still have a message on my Facebook telling me that if someone ever messages me, to just ignore it, and that he was trying to save his marriage for his kids. Story 10. I dated a girl for 3 years. Things were good mostly, and when we ended, it wasn't mutual, but it was amicable. But the last 7 months we were together. I had just graduated and didn't have a job yet, so I was staying with her and her single mom. Her mom had her young and was pretty attractive for her age. They never got along well. Her mom was always dressing up and trying to get her attention. One night while my ex was working, I was laying on our bed watching a movie and her mom came in and laid next to me. There was often some flirting, but this time more touching and hugging me, and once she got up, she did so by sliding her body all over the top of mine. It was clear that things could happen. Anyways, after we broke up, I moved out a week later as I had just started working. Still kept in touch with her and her mom. Her mom was always inviting me by, and even when I left the city, she told me that I could come stay with her, even if my ex wasn't there. Her mom was pretty hot, so I thought about it a few times, and the only thing stopping me was thinking about my ex finding out, and I didn't want to hurt her like that. I mean, it's cool that this guy is a nice guy and wants to spare his ex's feelings, but come on, bro. What do you have to lose? You've already broken up with the girl and have free reign to go forth and smash. Sometimes you need to put your needs and desires first. Just do what feels good. This is pretty much a grand slam if you wanted to hook up because the mom has all but walked into your room naked. She couldn't make it more obvious now. Come on. Story 11. I did it by accident, but after high school, I started working out in my apartment complex gym. I worked out often, usually alone, and one day this attractive woman around her mid-30s started coming in to use the treadmill. Eventually, she approached me and asked if I could show her how to use the other machines, and we got each other's phone numbers, and one thing eventually led to another. I would go over often, but always at the same time. One day as I'm coming out of her apartment, my ex-girlfriend from sophomore year and good friend from high school are walking towards her apartment and see us getting those last good kisses in for the day. All I heard first was what the heck. We both looked over and saw them, and I was a little more confused, but quickly put it together. My ex went inside screaming, and I left, and my high school buddy was shaking his head with a smile. We continued to see each other after that for a while, which I found weird, but the man was definitely more talented. Story 12. Slightly different. I guess being recently single at 29. After a 10-year-plus relationship, I had no idea how to meet someone. The last time I was single, giving someone a mixtape was a major part of your dating approach. Seems people meet each other online, and there are a few websites for this at the time. This was 12 or 13 years ago, so, alright, I'll give this a go. Met a few folks, most of whom were my age, had a few dates, and ended up dating someone for a few months who was in her mid-20s. Went on our way after a few months, but all fine, but no real spark. I gave up online dating, closed the accounts, etc. Went back to being single for 6 months and then got a message on a platform I'd forgotten to close down from a lady in her early 40s, single but divorced. Met for a few drinks, and we hit it off. Spent the next few weeks pretty much in the bedroom, and everything works for both of us. You have probably already guessed where this is going. We add each other on Facebook, and almost immediately, I start getting messages from the ex about, "How do you know my mom?" etc. And that completely blew up. I had no idea they didn't have the same name, last name, or even look alike. I gave up online dating entirely at that point. Story 13. I was flicking through a hookup app. Might have been Tinder, might have been Badoo or Bumble. Well, I can't remember, but I didn't have a face photo up as my profile, and I matched with the profile nearby, who also didn't have a photo up. She said that she was living with someone, but it wasn't going anywhere, and was just looking for fun, essentially, and I said that that's what I wanted. She drops in her pic, and I recognize her immediately. I play in a band, and we sometimes have a young guy step in to cover. He's multi-instrumental. If one of us can't make a gig for whatever reason, and it was his mom, whilst not being someone I knew all that well, I still consider the guy a friend, and this was the guy's mother. I'm in my late 20s and he's 17. She's late 40s. I explained that this might be a little bit awkward, and that we knew each other before explaining who I was. She didn't really seem to mind. She just said, "Well, I can keep a secret as well as you can," and sent me a load of frisky pics. That was it. I was in. Within 2 or 3 days we were meeting up outdoors, at least once every few weeks, and doing it car or the woods, as her house is seldom empty. We still meet up now. I saw her last Wednesday when she had a rare empty house, and we've been casually doing it for about 3 years, and that's the first time we did it in her bed. There was this one evening where we were practicing in our rehearsal space, and she buzzed me to say that she wasn't doing anything after dropping her son off to practice with us. I said I'd make an excuse, that I had to leave early, and that we could hook up. Her son asked her to pick him up early, and she made an excuse that she couldn't come back until the previously agreed time to pick him up. The rest of the guys just stayed behind and kept jamming, while I was around the back of the rehearsal space, on the other side of the wall from her son, doing it up against the wall. It was fun, and that innocent 17-year-old kid, who was apparently just clueless to all that is going on, he's probably like, "I wonder why my mom has been in such better mood lately." Well, guess what, dude? It's because your bandmate has been taking her to Pound Town on the rig. Makes you wonder how many lonely moms or housewives are lurking around on these dating apps, looking for their young hookup. Let me know how the hunting goes, boys.